Hello, this is Evan Rogerson, and I'm Metagang here, and today I'm going to be breaking down an official post from the GDC on the Vex forum, which I don't usually go to and check since it got 1980 forumed, but I'm going to go ahead and break it down. It does have some important information in it, as well as I will also have some pictures of the game manuals from this year and previous years side by side. Also, apologies, I have the hiccups right now, so those are probably going to interrupt the video. So first thing that they mention is custom plastics, which if we go over here, here are the changes in the custom plastic rules. So you can see on the left side is the newer version, and on the right hand side is the older version. So the older version was basically just fit within a 12 by 24 inch sheet, and as long as you use that sheet, then you're good to go. Now you must limit it to a maximum of 12 pieces, and each individual piece cannot be greater than 4 by 8 inches. The plastic types and the amount of procedures you're allowed to do to the plastics have not changed. And then again, teams are encouraged to bring one-to-one pieces of the scale drawings of what their plastic pieces are, as opposed to before when it was just like teams are encouraged. Now they are strongly encouraged. So that makes it definitely more obvious that this will probably be checked. Especially, I would expect to see something like an event region championships and SIGs and other world's qualifying events kind of going down through and covering this. So now their response to these changes are as follows. Basically, over the past 3 years, and I would agree that it's been about 3 years, I'd say Spit Up is the first year that teams really started going crazy with plastic. Teams really didn't care too much about it in Tipping Point, so teams have been really pushing what they can do with their plastics, and it was most noticeable at high levels of competitions, and Vex didn't like that this created a skill gap, which this is a little bit weird because, yeah, of course there's a skill gap. That's why some teams are good and some teams are bad. So I think this is more just poor wording. But I do get their point that they get to later on, that it's a closed system environment. This is the same reason why 3D printing isn't allowed. Each team has access to the same resources, and then with those resources, they all have to do kind of the same things. Like you can't just go and buy better motors and be better at the competition. Or you can't just machine your entire robot out of tungsten and be better. Like, you can't necessarily do those things for Vex in high school. And as a response to this, if you do really want to be able to do those things, go do like Vex AI, as they have a lot less restrictions, or just like hop over to FTC. So they felt that this was becoming too reliant on things like CNC machines and the ability that some teams had to machine these parts that other teams didn't. And additionally, this is the main thing that I think is important. Like, teams are still going to be machining their 4x8 pieces. Like, it's not going to be as big of an advantage, but it's still going to exist. I think this is the big one, is it's practically impossible to enforce this 4x8 limit. I mean, it is possible to enforce the 4x8, not the 12 by 24. Because, like, you can see, those 4 circles aren't legal. But that's not intuitive. Here, you can just go through, you can check all 12 pieces, you can immediately know, hey, how many pieces are on the robot, and then 4x8 is a fairly reasonable size to check, whereas 12 by 24 can be a lot harder to eyeball. You can't just have a giant sheet like that. And it's much easier to keep track of all the pieces on the robot. Like when you have hundreds of pieces, it can be hard to figure out where each piece is going to fit into the thing, whereas it's much easier to do this over here. So I think this is much more enforceable rule. It's going to be a lot harder for teams to cheat, and in order to get around this and have more plastic, the previous rule is unenforceable, and I do agree with this. And I think that this is quite good. Also, it does give you more plastic. 288 square inches previously, up to now 384 pieces. So I think this is good. I completely agree with them on this point. And like I said, if you go up in the top right, my reveal that I already made this year, like no plastic on that entire robot. You can do a lot of cool stuff with rubber band sheets. Now, 3D printed decorations, basically that rule just boils down to 3D printed parts for any purpose, including non-functional decorations and license plate, are prohibited items. And there wasn't really any rule like this that I could compare it to from previous seasons. They're just not allowed for any purpose. So basically the thing is that they're going with here, it's not fair to the volunteers to determine what is functional and what's not. And I do kind of agree with them here. I've definitely seen examples of teams with non-functional decorations that are skirting the limit, but not really with 3D printed non-functional decorations. So I think that this is perfectly fine. It does kind of suck for the teams that have 3D printed decorations, but I do agree that that was just an aesthetic thing that sucks, and I do think that it makes the competition more fair. So I think that it's good in that regard, and overall probably a positive change. And you can still do like scuffed toolboxes and stuff. And again, if you really want to do 3D printing, do Vex AI, go into VexU, or do something else like FTC entirely. Now, this is kind of the other big One is license plates alongside plastic. Is previously, license plates counted as a non-functional decoration. You can see that R10C from the previous game. So they didn't count as anything official on your robot. If like your license plate was touching the ladder, that did not count for AWP. Now, license plates are considered functional components and must meet the requirements of all robot rules, which is really the big change. So your license plates are now official parts, which means that they must be made from official Vex parts. That being either like the license plate kit or whatever this ugly thing is here. I don't get why this is a legal license plate. It is so hard to read, and it's also incredibly ugly. But oh well. Now, 3D printed license plates are not allowed because A, 3D printed decorations aren't allowed, and B, license plates now must be like official parts. And since 3D printing isn't legal for official parts, license plates can't do that. So that's illegal. That is now legal. That's really the big change. Your license plate sizes must be as follows. You can actually make your license plates a little bit smaller now. They can be like 2 inches tall instead of 2.5 inches tall. So I guess I'll be reprinting my plates for weight savings. Because for Vex U, none of these rules affect Vex U, because for Vex U, plastic is considered raw stock. So you can do as much of it as you want. 3D printing is obviously legal for Vex U. And you can see all of these rules have the little Vex U thing up in them. And since, well, this one doesn't, but since 3D printing is a legal material for Vex U, we can 3D print our license plates. And basically the logic behind this is a lot of rules were having, like a lot of referees that didn't have experience were having struggles with license plates not being non-functional. They are non-functional decorations, which means they don't count for contact with anything. And additionally, like, you might have to tell a team to move their license plates if it's in a spot that contacts game objects. And I do kind of agree that making license plates functional is a good thing, and then if they have to be functional, it does kind of make sense that you can't make them out of illegal materials. So, and again, the whole falling off thing I don't think was much of a deal, which they did now make it where license plates must be attached using legal materials for robot construction. Vex IQ pins are now not legal for these, so you can't just attach them with IQ pins. I never did that, but I know some teams are mad about that. I never really had issues with license plates falling off, but I do think it's good that now license plates count as functional. You don't have to worry about them not touching your robot. I mean, not touching game objects, or like, hey, does this count for contact with something? Like, balls can't be contacting game objects, whereas before, like, if a ball was contacting your license plate, technically, or the ball would count as scored, but if it was touching another part of your robot, then it would, so you could kind of get around things like that. So I think, again, this is fine. And yeah, the GDC basically says here that these are not really super important things. Also, it is funny because this is quoted from TikTok. Somebody found the original quote, and it's a TikTok quote. So GDC officially brain-rotted and scrolling TikTok. As you can see here, this quote has been said 3 times in total. One of these is the response from the GDC, and the other 2 times are both from TikTok. So Vex brain-rotted, cringe. Basically, and then if you have any thoughts and feedback, just reach out to their official email. I've done that before, and they've been decently receptive, especially when they do stupid stuff. And one more thing that I want to mention is the GDC did go ahead and say that they are going to be fixing the expansion rules. They are aware that Rule SG2 currently makes it illegal to start in size with an 18-inch by 18-inch robot, so the expansion rules will be changing at some point in the future. I'm not sure whether or not they'll do that in the 0.2 manual update or in the 1.0 update, but they are going to fix that, and they're aware of the issue. Let me know your thoughts on these down below in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe in order to please the YouTube algorithm, and thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next one.